Hello, good evening. Welcome to Twitch. It's a bit of a weird one. Most of us are used to either Instagram or YouTube, but as I showed you yesterday, we're going to branch out a little bit into Twitch as well. So there's another kind of live Q&A. We're going to talk about some stuff that's happened during Game Week 37, Man United team sheet, that kind of stuff as well. But the good news is you don't have to listen to me ramble on for 45 minutes because I'm joined by two people who are doing way better than me this season, so you should listen to them and not me. How you doing, Sam? Let's start off with you. Sam from FPL Family, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. Yep, in free hit tinker mode at the moment, so that's all good.
Yeah, we were just discussing before we came on. Me and Gianni very jealous of your free hit this week. How you doing, Gianni?
Yeah, I'm really good. And like you, yeah, jealous. For some reason, I'm torturing myself and setting up a free hit team.
Sorry, I did that. I kind of went blank there. Sorry, what did you say there? I completely missed it. I don't know if it
I
went.
went. I've been torturing myself by teasing myself with a free hit that I don't have. So I can see all those great players that I want to bring in, and I just can't press that button because I used it a few weeks back.
I did exactly the same for a video yesterday, and it's so annoying because I kind of went into. I don't know about you guys, but I always check my. Like, I always do my bus team basically, and I was thinking this looks alright for Game Week 38 until I watched Sterling absolutely annihilate Watford, and now I'm like, I've got to get him in. So, yeah, but we'll talk about the Man United team sheet quickly first because Raheem Sterling is going to be someone that we talk about a lot, I think, today. Wan-Bissaka bench, you got him, Sam, haven't you?
Gutted. Yeah. I was he's my third. He's the one actually that of all of my Man United players I kind of regret because I could have had Martial at the same time and decided to go with a defender. Since then, you've not Man United haven't been that great defensively and now he's benched. So I'm just hoping he stays on the bench because I've got Trent as my first defensive sub. So he can come on later and that'll be better than Wan-Bissaka coming on for a one pointer, which is what I fear is going to happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of that it's just going to depend on how well we do. I think if we're doing all right, you might be okay because I think we're going to have to just change the attackers again to make sure they're rested for Leicester. But to be honest, we haven't done that well the last two games. Like I wouldn't say we scraped by Crystal Palace, but it wasn't our best game. And Southampton, obviously, we all know how that happened. So if that happens again, then it won't be the attackers necessarily getting rotated, at least not early on. So we'll have to wait and see. What did you make of it, Gianni? Pretty standard team apart from that, right?
Yeah, it's the lineup. Ollie probably really wanted to play in the FA Cup and just feared that it was a game too many and a few players needed a rest. So it's the starting 11 without Wan-Bissaka, I guess, that you would expect again at the weekend on Sunday. Yeah, I mean that 11 looks great. The squad at United doesn't look brilliant, but the starting 11 really does. Ollie will be hoping they can recreate some of the form we were seeing a few weeks ago, where they're just scoring goals for fun, aren't they? Like Sam, I kind of regret my United defender. I have Maguire, but I'd have loved to have been able to go with the three United attacking assets for the good fixture run they've got.
I have Maguire as well, as I'm sure a lot of people well know. I can't watch the corners anymore. As soon as there's a corner, it's honestly it's like that gif of Roy Hodgson, you know, where he's sitting on the England bench. He looks really excited, and then his head just drops. That is me every time Man United get a corner, especially when Fernandes steps up and plays it short. That just really winds me up. Then, and I know it's for. You know, there is obviously reasons why they're doing it. It's for the good of the team. But I'm thinking Maguire is not going to be heading a pass on the floor. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But you're right. It kind of blocked me from going Rashford and Greenwood as well. So it's been a bit frustrating. But if he gets a goal, it'll all be kind of worth it in the end. So basically, yeah, for anyone that's watching live, we're gonna answer some questions from the chat. So make sure you get your questions in. Obviously, we'll talk about some stuff as well in the meantime. But if you ask questions in the chat, I will keep an eye on it. And yeah, we'll go from there. We'll just answer your questions as they come in. But while we're waiting for them, let's start with Raheem Sterling. Has looked brilliant since restart. His scores are incredible in the last 6 game weeks. Obviously, the ones he started. I think he blanked against Southampton, as most of the team did. But other than that, he's done incredible. We'll come to you first, Sam. Do you think he's a must-own now for Game Week 38?
I was hoping he wasn't going to be, because actually the budget in the free hit could go nicely elsewhere. But yeah, I do think he is now. I think he's in that good a form. Came off early as well, didn't he, in the game yesterday? So pretty much nailed on to starting game week 38. He needs all the momentum. Pep needs him to have momentum for the Champions League in the summer. So yeah, absolutely nailed on. I think if you don't have him in game week 38, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, I've seen some people trying to think of reasons why he's not going to start in game week 38, and like I think you're clutching at straws. I would bet a lot of money. In fact, I'd be interested to get your opinion. I think last night's team, I think it'll be very similar for game week 38. I think David Silva will come in, probably for Bernardo Silva, and then Foden will drop out, and I think Mahrez will start. And I mean, defence may change. I don't think most of us care about that. Obviously, there'll be a few Laporte, a few Garcia owners, etc. But in attack, I think that could be the only two changes that are made. What do you think, Gianni? Do you think it'll be as simple as that? Or do you think it'll just be more Pep roulette?
You know, I've been guessing Pep's lineups surprisingly quite well in the last few weeks. And yeah, as you say, I think Bilva goes out for Dilva. And I think Mahrez goes out, or comes in, should I say, for Foden. And that'll be the only two in the attacking lineup, I think. It's going to be a very similar looking team that plays Norwich to the team that plays Real Madrid, I feel. And he's going to want that 11 playing together, and he's going to want some intensity by that 11. And I don't think we'll see the 5 subs. We didn't see them yesterday. I think there's no reason now to manage minutes in the same way. So yeah, scary times for Norwich. Man City triple up for me is a must, and I can't see past the Sterling captaincy. And I'm really usually taking a 4-point hit on the last day of the season, you know, for 1 week only. But I'll be taking a 4-point hit for Sterling, and therefore it's kind of justified because I'll be giving him the armband, and because he's so explosive and he wants that 20 goal mark. He said that he's on 19.
Yeah, I think the minutes thing is really interesting because it's not just the amount of time between games why that's happened, but it's also obviously getting players up to match fitness. You'd think at this point they've had enough games for that to happen, and I just don't see why he would rest. Because I think there's 4.5, basically 5 days between the game last night and the one they're going to play on Sunday. And then the one, I think the Champions League is like another 7 or so after that. So there's no need to rest these players for 12 days. And maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I do think it'll just be, in attack at least, Mahrez and David Silva in, and the rest will start. I think De Bruyne, Jesus playing a 90 kind of made me worry maybe a tiny bit, but it doesn't look like he's going to play this false 9 that everyone's been talking about. So he's going to do it. So you're going to take a hit for Sterling. Do you think in general, is that only because you're captaining him? If you weren't going to captain him, do you still think a -4 is a good option?
Yeah, I'm torn. It depends. If you've already got 3 City, then maybe not. But if you're doing it so you can get 3 City, maybe. I mean, I could avoid the hit and go KDB to Sterling. But I want to get rid of Foden. So Foden to Sterling means I need to make up so much money, 6 million elsewhere, by downgrading 2 players on my bench. So I'm very happy to, because it means I'll have that full complement: Sterling, Jesus, KDB. Surely every goal City score, which I'm expecting 5 or 6, those 3 are going to be involved. But if, yeah, it depends how many City assets you've already got. I think 3 is a must. I'd take the hit if it meant getting a 3rd.
Yeah, I'm pretty much along the same line. A couple of people have asked already, would we take a -4 for Sterling? What about you, Sam? Obviously, you're on the free hit, so you don't need to. But if you weren't, is it a case of you have to get him in at all costs? Or, because, I mean, he's not the only captain option this week. I know it feels like that right now, but if Salah or Mane score a brace tonight against Chelsea, well, they've got a pretty easy fixture as well in game week 38, and suddenly they're not being talked about very much now, but a brace tonight will change that. So do you think it's get him in at all costs, or only if you're going to captain? Like, would you take a -4 if you weren't going to captain him?
No, I don't think I would. I think so. I took a -4 a couple of weeks ago, and actually, in terms of, it's so close at the moment in terms of overall rank. If overall rank's really important to you, then the -4 could cost you places if Sterling only gets some of the points from the Manchester City game. And like you say, there are other options there. David Silva looks like a brilliant option in his last Premier League game as well, as a real differential out there captain choice. And I think he could be just as good a pick going into that last game as Sterling could. Now, Salah in the hunt for the Golden Boot race, he's going to be one for looking at against Newcastle in that final game week 2. So I don't think it's necessarily get Sterling in at all costs, because if you're going to take out players like Salah to fund it, I don't think it's worth doing that.
Yeah, I hate these he's not a 1 game week picks. A lot of people have had him, but it can feel like everyone's got him. He's like a must own, and it's hard to sit here and say that he's not a must own because he does look so good. But I kind of agree. I don't know if he's a get in at all costs. Like a -4 is fine, but it obviously depends a lot on who you're taking out. Like if you were taking out like a Salah or a Mane for a -4, then suddenly it's a little bit different. Like Electru has put in the chat, I'm free hitting also this week, and I'm thinking of going without Sterling which I know is kind of almost like blasphemy in the FPL community at the moment. But he's going to double on Salah and Mane instead. What do you think about that, Gianni? Do you think they're good options? Like Newcastle, statistically, lots of injuries and then also conceding lots of good chances. So they are, even though it's away, which I don't think really matters that much in the moment, it's still a really good fixture. It might not be Norwich at home, but it's still really good. And we know that Salah and Mane can get big hauls. So do you think they're a genuine alternative, or do you think that's just playing with fire?
I feel like with the Salah and Mane, go for one or the other, but perhaps not both. When those two play and when those two haul, they very rarely both haul. You see one or the other. So by doubling up for one fixture only, I'd probably swerve it. I mean, Electru that asked a question, it depends who your mini league rivals are going for. That also plays a big part in game week 38, right? If you're playing for overall rank, then going without Sterling could be really risky. If you're looking at your game week rivals thinking, you need a differential because you're 10 points short and they don't have Mane and Salah, I see the thinking there. But I feel like that Norwich fixture, Man City, the only team in the league that on any given day can score 5-6 past anyone, they're playing Norwich. That's very easy for them to score 5-6. So I'd struggle not to pick Sterling this week on a free hit.
I tell you what really worries me about that Norwich game. I'm not saying it's going to happen again because it was extremely unlikely, but they lost their heads a bit. And you know what's going to be more frustrating than trying to get the ball off Burnley? Trying to get the ball off Man City. So to go down to 9 men, like if I didn't have triple City attack or even Sterling, they go down to 9 men. And again, it's very unlikely, I know, but I would have to turn the TV off. I just would not be able to watch that. It was bad enough watching it for Burnley, let alone for Man City. So yeah, I kind of agree. What do you think, Sam? Do you think there's any case to go for Salah or Mane over Sterling this week?
I think there's a case for Salah, given he's on pens and, like I said before, in the Golden Boot race. I'm not sure that I would want them both. I think Salah and Mane is a little bit too much. If anything, if I was going to go for extra Liverpool, I'd probably go for Van Dijk at the back because Newcastle concede a lot of headed chances. I think they've got the most headed chances conceded since the restart. So from a corners point of view, Van Dijk could be a nice option. So I think there's better ways to spend your Liverpool money than there is to spend on both. And I don't think both will counteract what Sterling could do against, what any of the Man City players could do against Norwich, to be honest.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I've just been banging on it so much about Salah and Mane. I kind of don't want to go back against what I was saying before, but yeah, I find it really hard to argue against Sterling. Like you talked about Liverpool defence. Are you going for any of them on your free hit?
Well, it's really tough because I've got Trent at the moment and I can't really budget for him. He's too expensive. So having looked at the stats on corners, headed chances conceded from Newcastle, I think I'm going to go with Van Dijk. I think they'll keep a clean sheet. Newcastle, since Lascelles' injury, they just haven't looked rock solid defensively. And even before Lascelles was getting injured, they were letting in silly goals here or there where they just went to sleep. So I think they're a good option in terms of going forward, the Liverpool defenders. But then again, they keep making silly mistakes at the back. So it's kind of whether I think the clean sheet is likely to stick from a Liverpool point of view, as well as there being some attacking returns potential. Because I think on a free hit, the key thing for me is that the three defenders that I have, I want them to keep clean sheets. So there needs to be a kind of guaranteed 6-pointer there from them because I've got free picks. So it's difficult, I think, with the Liverpool defence. They're so expensive in comparison to some of the others.
Yeah, if you're not going for them, then who are you currently looking at? I guess Burnley defence is going to be on everyone's free hit given the fixture, right?
Yeah, so Burnley defence, probably maybe even a double up of the Burnley defence with Pope in goal. And then I've got Peters already and he did me brilliantly last week. So I'm probably gonna stick with him. I also have Aurier in my team. I've had him for a couple of weeks now since he got that 8-pointer a few weeks back. So I think I'm going to stick with him. Spurs have got a really nice fixture against a Palace side that they've got injury woes galore at the back and Aurier going forward could cause some havoc there. And then the middle one is kind of up for grabs. It's Van Dijk at the moment, but there are a few other options, people with nice fixtures. I've also looked at Man City and maybe taking a punt on someone like Garcia, but that takes away from your ability to have one of their attackers, which I don't necessarily like. But yeah, the other option I've got is to look at West Ham and Diop. I think he could be quite good, but then Aston Villa looked decent last night against Arsenal, and that's kind of thrown that again. So it's tough to pick three defenders, I think, because the ones that have got the nice fixtures, you want the attacking players from those teams.
Yeah, I don't know. I basically completely agree. I think clean sheets are not only are they usually like you're going to see a lot of the like the scores and stuff from previous final days of the season. We all know that the narrative is that there's more goals, and it does tend to be like that. It's not really a narrative; it just is what it is. So I do think I had a look when I did my free hit team, like just to draft for just looking into it, like Gianni did. It's really hard to find a clean sheet this week. I think outside of kind of Burnley, I would still expect Liverpool to get one, but obviously you have to pay more for that. Like, what do you think, Gianni? Is there any defences outside of kind of Liverpool, maybe Aurier and Burnley that you'd be looking at this week?
Not massively. I was going to say, yeah, Spurs I'd be looking at because Spurs are starting to look like a Mourinho team, aren't they? They're scoring a few more goals than they were before, and they're starting to keep clean sheets. So I think Aurier, and we know how high he goes up on the right. He's often the main attacking outlet on the touch lines for either side of Aurier. So no, I like Aurier. I like a Liverpool cover, and then a Burnley defender. They would be my three. And interesting what Sam says about the Van Dijk option. I feel like that's a very good one because Trent is so expensive. You know, you're saving over £1 million if you go for a Van Dijk. That can be used elsewhere. And Trent's not been getting the attacking returns. The only fear of dropping Trent is the ownership for overall rank. If he does haul, you could really miss out. I mean, I've sold Trent once this season, and my plan was always to bring him back a few weeks later on a wild card. And it was actually Boxing Day when he got his 24-point haul. And I sold him days before that. And I just thought never again. And it wasn't the fact he got 24 points. It was the fact he was owned by nearly 50% of the game. That killed me. So that's the only worry with Trent is the ownership level.
I think ownership as well. And I know people hate talking about it. But if they're ever going to get to talk about ownership, it's got to be this week because it does come it comes into play any week, but this week in particular. And last season, I can't remember what my rank was going into Game Week 38, but it was close to top 10k, and so I had a decision to make about my captaincy, and I can't remember exactly what the scenario was. I know which players it was. I can't remember who they were playing and stuff, but it was between Mane and Salah. And I knew that Mane would be captained by less people, a bit like this year actually. Obviously, Sterling's going to be way more captain than Mane. But it was the same last year, and I was in a mini league, and I was like 70 odd points ahead. So the chances of me losing that was like almost zero, and I still went for the Sterling safe pick because that's who the person behind me had, and not captaining Mane. Literally the exact amount of points I lost out on between those two, which was only like 3 or 4 or something like that, cost me a top 10,000 place. So it does come like if you're in the top 10k, and you want to stay there. Ownership should come into your thinking. Obviously, if you want to absolutely go for it and try and max your rank, you're not bothered if you drop out. And it's a bit different. But that's one thing on kind of Sterling this week. I can't remember what his effective ownership was this week, but it must be around like 30% or something, I think it was. Probably even higher, actually. Next week, it's going to be huge. It's going to be close to 100, I think, because so many people have got their free hit. So if you're looking for a big rank increase, yes, Sterling could hurt you. But if you're that kind of manager that wants to take the risk, then that's where I'd be looking at someone like Mane, who's, I think his top 10k ownership's like less than 8%. And I don't think, unless he scores a hat-trick tonight, that's going to go up that much. So I know people hate the ownership discussion, but I do think it's something to be said for it this week especially, and especially like not everyone looks overall rank. I do now pretty much. I kind of almost wish I was in more mini leagues that I cared about. But there is also the mini league discussion. I've seen people already like kind of saying to me, this person behind me's got this player. You should absolutely take that into account, especially if there's money riding on it, right? That's when to do it the most. So yeah. Like that's basically what I did Sterling last year. So I got a bit of money, guaranteed, but I lost my top 10k place. I'm not sure which one I prefer more, actually. Let's look at the chat here. So Bohan said, and a lot of people are looking at doing this now because of last night. Thoughts, we'll come to you first, Sam. Thoughts on getting rid of Jesus this week? Man City player against Norwich at home for Harry Kane. What do you think of
that? So I do think Harry Kane will do really well this week. He has found his rhythm. He has definitely found his fitness again. And he's starting to, I think, kind of get his place in that Spurs team now. Now, before, when he first came back from injury and when restart happened, just didn't have the fitness levels, did he? And he wasn't able to kind of get from defence up top. And we saw in the game the other night against Leicester that actually he's got fully back into his rhythm and his groove now. It's difficult to take Jesus out there against Norwich. He's likely to, I can't see any reason for him not to play in that game. And that's a really, really nice fixture. The only thing I'd say is that in the Spurs lineup, the way that it is at the moment, the points tend to be spread between Kane, Son, and maybe a little bit of Lucas Moura in there too. Whereas across the City lineup, you've got Sterling, you've got KDB, you've got David Silva, who's its last Premier League game. You've got Foden if he makes it on. You've got Mahrez if he plays him. So there's a wealth of opportunities for other people to kind of get in the points there. So I do feel like with Harry Kane, if he scores goals, he's going to get bonus points, and that might not necessarily be the case with Jesus. So it depends on where you are. I think it goes back to what you were just saying before. If you're looking to be a bit more aggressive and work your way up mini leagues or hit overall rank, then I think Kane if you're prepared to captain him, could be a great idea. But I wouldn't necessarily swap Jesus for him if you're not going to captain Kane.
No, I like that. We do have to bear in mind, anyone watching, Sam is Harry Kane's biggest fan, so you take that.
I am.
Take that into consideration when you listen to that. What do you think, Gianni? Do you think Jesus to Kane is worth? I mean, you're taking out the Man City striker playing Norwich at home for Harry Kane. And I'm not saying Harry Kane's a bad option, but is that where the transfer? Is that a priority transfer for you?
I have Jesus, and I would love Kane. I would make that swap only if I could get a third City asset as part of that swap. So, for example, if you got 2 free transfers, I'd swap Kane for Jesus all day long if it meant I could therefore get a third City midfielder in. If it is just a like-for-like one transfer, then no, I wouldn't, because, as you say, Andy, it's the Man City number 9 against the worst team in the league for the team that scores the most goals in the league. Saying that, as a Jesus owner, am I happy with him? Not really. When City win 4-0, do I expect him to be amongst the points last night? Absolutely. Yeah, he had the goal disallowed in the last minute and he was rightly offside. But the way Jesus plays and the way City play, the team is not set up for Jesus to return points. The team is set up for the wide forwards to be in and amongst the goals, a little bit like the way Liverpool play with Firmino and Mane, Salah running in behind and getting the points. And that's exactly what Sterling or Mahrez or Foden does. When Aguero plays, it's slightly different. I'm not saying Jesus is a Firmino type striker. He's not. But at the moment, that's just how Man City are looking. So, yeah, I'm really disappointed as a Jesus owner. Of course, he's got me a few points in the last few weeks, but he should be getting me more. And if he's starting against Norwich, which I think he will, then yeah, I'll play him. The other consideration there is Kane will definitely play 90. I don't think Jesus will, because he did last night. I think he'll be one of the first to be subbed from the attacking assets of the Man City lineup.
Yeah.
But I'll be sticking with him, no doubt, because, my hands are tied.
Yeah, I agree about the minutes thing. I'm a little bit worried about him now playing more than 60. I have him as well. I will say, over the last 4 games, even with the blank last night, he has scored 8 points per match, which is nothing compared to Sterling, but it's not that bad. The only thing is, I think after the Southampton game, everyone was kind of not happy with him at all and weren't looking to bring him in. The difference, I think, between last night's game and the Southampton game is, in the Southampton game, he looked like he was going to score. It just didn't happen. And then he did really well for the next 3. Last night, I don't know, just completely off it. Like, some of the shots he took was just, I don't know, just almost like no will to score. So it was a little bit of a worry. And as much as I don't think Pep is going to hugely care about the assist record, or like, he's going to want his players to get these records, but considering they've still got Champions League left, it's not going to be his priority. But we know when Sterling gets the ball, he's shooting. He's not passing to Jesus. De Bruyne will pass, but he's probably going to be looking for Sterling anyway. So would I do Jesus to Kane? I'm not sure many FPL teams are that good where that's the priority to do. But I'm not against it. I got 2 free transfers. I could do Jesus and Son to David Silva and Kane.
You want to.
I don't know if I do, though. For me, like, I'll come and ask you two this question actually in a minute, because it was put in the chat. I can't see who. Winnie Man said basically, so it's Sterling, David Silva, and so basically my top 3 Man City players this week. If I was free hitting, I think I would still go for Jesus, because I think him, Mahrez, and Sterling are the most likely to be scoring the goals, especially with De Bruyne apparently giving up penalties for Sterling. That worries me a bit, because he's been playing. He's not a defensive midfielder, but he does play quite deep, and he's looking to create chances, not really shooting that much in the box. So they're still my 3. They were my 3 before last night. I still think that's who I would pick: Jesus, Sterling, and Mahrez. I know David Silva, it's his last game, but I don't know. I think the other 3 are better for goals. What do you think, Gianni? If you were picking 3 right now, free hit, who are you going for?
I mean, those three are the front three, so I completely see why they're the three
Exactly.
closest to the goal. The only one I'd probably so mine are Mahrez and Sterling are nailed for the reason that I think they'll both play 90 and then their front three players. But I'd actually complement them with a third midfielder over Jesus, just because I don't think Jesus is going to play, has got a chance of playing 90. And I think KDB might. And also, when we talk about individual awards, we always think Golden Boot, but we can't forget there is an individual award there that KDB is going after. Yes, he's not on pens, so you think he might lose out in goals. But in terms of assists, he's on 19. He's got Henry's record of, I think, 20 to get. If City score 5 or 6, then surely KDB. I know last night he only got the 1 assist. You'd expect him to get a couple of them. So for the assist points, I think KDB would edge Jesus for me.
Okay, interesting. What about you, Sam? Do you think the same?
No, I don't. I own KDB at the moment, and to be honest, I'm so disappointed in him. I've had him all season, ever since game week 1, and since the restart, I just haven't felt the love for him. He's sitting so, particularly in the last few game weeks, he's been so deep, and there's been those couple of hauls that Man City have had where he's got 1 assist or nothing, and it's kind of like, I don't spend this much money on you for 1 assist or nothing. So for me, it's actually David Silva that I really want in the midfield alongside Sterling. I think it might be the football romantic in me. Lee keeps saying it is, but I do think that they will be looking for him to score a final Premier League goal in the final game of his Premier League career. I really do. So I think David Silva will be there or thereabouts, and he's a bonus points magnet. So I can see him, if he gets a goal, he'll be pulling in the bonus points regardless of what else happens on the pitch. So
might be on pens as well. If they're 3-0 up, surely David Silva's taken the pen.
They're giving him something, aren't they? Let's be honest. They're all going to be looking for him.
What if Sterling scored 2 of the goals though of that 3-0? Surely he then takes it.
Then they'll have a fight about who takes it, I guess.
The only thing, I know a few people have said this, I don't necessarily disagree with it. The only thing I would say about David Silva taking penalties is I feel like the team would have to force him. I don't think he's not like people have said, like John Terry going off on 26 minutes. David Silva is not that ego driven. I think he'd happily play 60 or 70, then go off, celebrate behind closed doors, maybe do an interview if he absolutely has to. He just feels like that kind of player. So the penalty thing, I think if Sterling or De Bruyne handed him the ball, I'm sure he would take it. But he's not going to be pushing for it, I don't think.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I'd agree. But I do think that they will. I do think that the rest of the team are very much aware that it's his last game. And I don't necessarily think he gets given a penalty, but I do think that if he's in goal scoring opportunities, they'll be looking to give him the ball.
Yeah, no,
I think give him free kicks as well. In the last few weeks, I know KDB wasn't on the pitch, I don't think, when he scored one of the 2 free kicks, but David Silva doesn't often step up and take free kicks 20 yards out, and he has been. So
They complement each other really well as well, because one's right-footed, one's left, so it kind of works from that, especially that right side of the box, which is where he got the one against Bournemouth, I think it was. I don't remember the other one, but yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic free kick, so we know what he can do. So yeah, I mean, David Silva's a good shout. I do think Mahrez, I mean, he's obviously not under the radar because we've all just said that we've put him in, but from like an ownership perspective, he's one of the least owned Man City attackers. And if anyone, if he starts, his points when he started this season are just ridiculous. And it's a little bit different now because we know how much Sterling is just gunning for those goals. But Mahrez, I think, is a huge option this week. I feel like he is due a haul, at least a double-figure haul this week. And I've got him in my team. Bit frustrating that there's a couple of 1-pointers in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But surely he doesn't get rested again. At least that's what I'm hoping. Just seen another question in the chat. Back Dennis, I think that is. Is it time to transfer Jamie Vardy out? So playing Man United next week at home against Harry Maguire. We beat them 1-0 in the reverse fixture. But there could be a lot riding on this one. There will be a lot riding on them because Champions League won't be 100% confirmed after tonight, no matter what happens. So what do you think, Gianni? Do you think Jamie Vardy's a good option to get rid of in Game Week 38?
Well, there's fixtures I want to avoid this week, and the 2 fixtures that involve those teams going for Champions League, Chelsea, Wolves, United, Leicester, I'm keen to swerve those fixtures and get rid of as many players in them as possible, because I just think they're going to be really tight, cagey affairs. And we're not, when we're talking about Vardy, we're talking about a premium asset that's just short of £10 million. There's a lot of you could have most strikers in the game for that price. So I'd be looking to swap him for a Jesus or a Kane if you can upgrade slightly. And yeah, I'd get rid or even save money elsewhere and downgrade and upgrade your midfield. Saying that, of course, Vardy, we know, scores against the big teams and he's on pens, but Leicester don't look great, do they? I mean, they scored, did they lose to Bournemouth 4-1 the other day? I mean, Leicester just, I'd be very surprised to see Leicester beating United on the final day, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the problem for me for Leicester is they got so many injuries. It's like James Maddison out; he's like their main creative kind of force in that team. Even Ben Chilwell, usually, I mean, obviously we know Ricardo gets forward as well, but he's injured too. So it's kind of right. It's Ben Chilwell's turn to get forward. Now he's injured as well. So yeah, I think they'll give us a tough game. But I personally, I've been saying for weeks, I wouldn't have Jamie Vardy anyway. So I would still be up for that. Like, he could score against Man United, but there's plenty of, like, you could go down to Chris Wood, Danny Ings if you don't own them. That gives you money to upgrade elsewhere. I agree, Jesus is still a better option despite the blank. And again, Harry Kane, even Aubameyang. I know people have flip-flopped a lot about Aubameyang. We can maybe talk about him in a set. But after the Man City game, it's like, oh, right, he scored 2 goals. We need him in our free hit teams. Oh, now he's blanked against Aston Villa. No, let's not have him. So, quickly, before we go on to Aubameyang, I guess, what do you think of Jamie Vardy, Sam? Do you think any reason to keep him this week?
Not for me. I think there's better options, actually. I think Man United's defence hasn't been rock solid, so there is always going to be opportunities there. But I think the point with Jamie Vardy is that we saw him go on this massive barren streak between Christmas and basically the restart, because there was no creativity and there was no movement from the midfield up to him. And we kind of got back to that because they've got no players to kind of bridge the gap between them. So what we'll see is Vardy dropping back to try and get involved in the game, and that's not conducive to him scoring lots of goals. So I think there's better options. I would even take a look at Giroud. I know they've got a tough fixture against Wolves, but Chelsea are going to need to win that game in order to get Champions League, and Giroud is the exact sort of player that I would expect to kind of stand up and be counted on the final day of the season. So he's a nice option too.
Nice, yeah, nice. What do you think about that, Gianni? Chelsea fan, Giroud this week?
The one Chelsea player I would be looking at probably would be Giroud. And in a few weeks back, you'd have said maybe Pulisic, maybe Willian. But without Pulisic against United a couple of days ago, Mason Mount played in the front three and was arguably man of the match. He didn't get it, but he did by many pundits. And I just wonder if Mount might get the nod over Pulisic in one of the either tonight or against Wolves. I think Willian's a shoo-in for the right. And of course, Pulisic had the knock. So no, Giroud is the one. And of course, Giroud's cheap. No, what is he, 6.6?
And a massive differential as well. Hugely low ownership. So could be an absolute brilliant pick if he does well.
Yeah, nice shout.
It's not the worst idea I've heard, actually. And I can't say I've seen many experienced managers with Giroud in their team. So great differential.
Yeah, huge one. Let's do another question from the chat. So Mike Svedin, I think I got that right. And I've seen a lot of free hit teams with just one of these. So Man United players. So you've already mentioned, Gianni, that it's kind of going to be maybe a cagey game. Right now, most people, not everyone of course, but most people are either doubled up or even tripled up, potentially even tripled up on attack. So let's do this from a non-free hit point of view first of all. Actually, no, let's do it from a free hit point of view. Would you keep 2 or 3 Man United players, or would you go down to 0 or 1? And if it's just one, a lot of people seem to be picking between Martial and Bruno. Do you think Martial's overtaken Bruno at this point?
I planned my free hit, and the one United player, I went with one United player, and it was with Bruno. Yes, Martial is potentially a little bit more explosive and potentially has a higher ceiling, but Bruno is involved in absolutely everything, every single game. And there are games when Martial will go quiet. And I feel like with Martial, you're either going to get 12 points or 2 points. Bruno can tick along nicely with his consistent 6s and 8s. So for the consistency and the ownership, which is of course higher on Bruno, I'd back Bruno all day long. I'm a big eye test man, and when I watch the games and I just see it, every attacking move, Bruno is involved. And, Martial isn't, of course, by the nature of how he plays and where he plays. Of course he's not. So I just feel like Bruno's the more attractive option there.
Interesting. What do you think, Sam? Because one player I never see in free hit teams at the moment, and obviously we're still waiting for all the games to finish, is Rashford. Instead of either of those, and maybe using your midfield slots elsewhere. Like, are you looking at Man United players this week?
Yeah, so I currently have Wan-Bissaka, as we've mentioned already, Bruno and Rashford. They're my three Man United assets. But depending upon my strategy with Manchester City is going to depend on my strategy with Manchester United. I'm going to hold one of them because I do think Manchester United will beat Leicester in that game at the end of the season. So there's definitely space for one. It's just which one. Now, budget's going to be a big factor here because if I end up sticking with a Liverpool defender, I'm probably not going to necessarily be able to afford to have Rashford and Kane and Jesus up top, which is what I'd be looking for. So I'm looking at the midfield potentially. It's difficult to pick between Martial and Bruno in reality. Martial is better at home, so that kind of puts me off given that it's an away game. As Gianni said, Bruno is involved in everything, but I'm still looking at Greenwood as a third striking option. I think, having owned Rashford for most of this part, well, all of the Project Restart, and not had Greenwood, I do kind of, there is a bit of me that's tempted to make that switch and cover Man United that way. But it is really tough because actually I fancy Man United to beat Leicester. I think it'll be cagey, but I do think Manchester United will come out on top, and I think they'll score a couple of goals against that Leicester defence. So it's just picking which ones. Bruno will probably win out, and I'll probably end up holding him, but I do fancy having Greenwood as well.
Yeah, I think Greenwood's a good shout because he just gives you so much money. Simple as that. Like, I wrote an article on Scout the other day, and actually he's had 0 big chances since the restart. I know he scored, but he's actually had no big chances, and obviously tonight might change that. To put that in perspective, Martial I think has had 6. I think Bruno Fernandes is very close to that as well, and Rashford's had 7. So Greenwood's obviously his finishing's been good, but if you're a bit of a stats person, then he's not really getting the great chances, and he hasn't looked great the last couple of games. But it gives you so much money. It's just a nice way to get that. And I don't think outside of maybe Kane, Jesus, like Danny Ings is I don't know. Danny Ings is probably a shoo-in for a lot of people's teams. He's so good. But Sheffield United at home, is that a great fixture? Chris Wood for Burnley. I mean, he looks okay, but it's Burnley. They scored 2 goals against Norwich, but they were helped quite a lot in that. So even down to 9 men, they still look like they couldn't barely score. So I don't know if he's an amazing option. So I don't think Greenwood, when you compare to the rest and the price saving, is that bad an option. With Martial and Fernandes, I really think most people's free hit teams will come down to who scores the most tonight. I think it'll be as simple as that. I'm not saying you'll do that, Sam, but I think a lot of managers will flip-flop between whoever scores the most. And if Martial can do it again, it'd be hard to look past him. The reason I've captained Martial this week for 37 simply because he's lower owned. We were talking about ownership earlier. I just felt like between him and Fernandes, not a huge amount of difference. And if I'm going to get a bigger green arrow, I'm going to put it on Martial. It might not work out, but I completely agree. He's on absolutely everything. So it's so hard to discount Bruno the way the form he's been in since restart. Let's leave it on one more thing then, just because I mentioned him just a minute ago, is Aubameyang. So after the last game and after the FA Cup, I saw people saying they were going to put Kane and Aubameyang in their free hit teams. Now, some people, I've seen some ridiculous team value, by the way, where they've got those two and Salah and Sterling and De Bruyne, which is just insane. But for most people, they're not going to be able to afford that. So is Aubameyang worth a slot, Sam, when you'd have to maybe not go for a Sterling or maybe not go for a Mane or a Salah or even a Kane? Do you think he's worth a go?
So I did have a free hit team that did have Kane and Aubameyang because my team value is about 1.6 mil, so I can just about do it. But it does compromise everybody else. But then I watched the Arsenal game yesterday and was just like, oh, I just fear with Aubameyang and with Arsenal that you don't know which one's going to turn up, and you don't really know. Like at least with Kane, if I spend that much money on Kane and Sterling, you know that you're likely to get a return. They're not likely to blank. They're also not likely to sit on the bench. We've got the added complication, obviously, of Nketiah being back now. So last night we had all 3 of them on the pitch, Aubameyang, like I said, and Nketiah. It didn't seem to work last night with all 3 of them there. So one of them's got to drop out. Would expect that to be Lacazette, but then there's going to be some rotation there. I'm not keen on Aubameyang. He could haul and it could hurt me, but his ownership's not that high. So if he does haul, it's not going to necessarily be the end of the world. I think there's better ways to spend your budget, to be honest.
No, that's fair enough. What do you think, Gianni? Same kind of thinking, or would you maybe think about putting him in?
I wouldn't even consider it. Honestly, if Aubameyang was 8 million, I don't think I'd go there for 8 million. I wouldn't,
Oh,
not at the
that's
moment
harsh.
in this.
That's
Yeah,
harsh.
in this team, this Arteta team doesn't score many. Yeah, they beat City 2-0, but they did that off about what 25 possession and 3 shots on target, and yeah, they got the 2 goals. But no, Watford have got loads to play for as well. I think that will be a tight game. I mean, if they can't score against Villa, and yes, Villa's defence is much improved, but it's still a very leaky defence. They didn't even look like scoring last night. And, you know, if I am spending that on Aubameyang, I still have this thing with him. I want to see him playing as the number 9 forward, and he's just not ever played there. He hasn't all season. So no chance. I'd veer away from Arsenal completely. There's no one there I'd like.
Well, the only one I would say I would like when I put my draft together is Martinez in goal. I think,
Oh yeah, I've got him.
Yeah,
I've got Martinez.
I mean, the thing I like about Martinez, like I've got absolutely, like, if you've got the money, no issue with going with Pope instead. But Martinez gives you like what 0.7 million saving, and you can just get 2 outfield burning defenders. So I do like Martinez. I hate to like necessarily agree on everything, but I mean, I haven't changed my opinion since before this game week started. I said Kane on the Scoutcast last week instead of Aubameyang. There's just something. Aubameyang's not really necessarily like a big stats kind of player. He doesn't necessarily need all these big chances to get points, but Kane kind of does, and he is getting them right now. So it's hard to look past him. I think that Crystal Palace game is way better than Watford, by the way. I know Watford kind of got tanked last night, but I just don't see Arsenal doing that the same as City did. And who knows? Who knows how much fight Watford will put up for that last game? There's so much riding on it. So if I had to pick between the two, I would go Kane every day. Maybe not all season I would have said that, but right now I would. Like, Aubameyang scored 20 goals this year, so pretty impressive. Still in chance for the Golden Boot. But since restart, and bearing in mind they had one of them was against Man City, but they had a double game week, so they've played an extra game versus a lot of players. He's only scored 3 goals, and he's played every single game apart from that Liverpool one where he's rested. So 3 goals in what 8 or 9 matches, I think it is not a great. It's 9 matches actually. It's 9 matches since restart for Arsenal. It's not that great. So he can do it, but for me, I just think there's other strikers I would bet on. So I'm basically in agreement. We'll leave it there. I think we'll leave it there. For everyone in the chat that's saying I didn't even know you had Twitch, we literally only had it this week. We literally only had it since yesterday. So we have put it out on Twitter a little bit, but yeah, that's about it. We'll talk about it a bit more on videos and stuff. I don't know how many more Twitch streams we'll do before the end of the season, but next season we should see a few more here. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button, and we'll figure out what we're going to do next season. Before then, I will say thanks very much, Sam. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Andy.
And I hope you get that 1-pointer off the bench for Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire gets.
No, you don't.
Harry
Stay
Maguire,
there.
15 point. Harry Maguire, 15-pointer with 5-0 up. He comes off after 70 minutes, and then Wan-Bissaka comes on. That's my ideal scenario tonight. I hate to say it.
That is a nightmare. That is a nightmare.
And
Stay on the bench. Trent can play later instead. Thanks, Wan-Bissaka.
Gianni, thanks very much as well for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
I should say really quickly before we go, it will be on YouTube, not on Twitch, I'm afraid. But me and Gianni will be with Lee from FPL Family and Toby as well from FPL Diary on Sunday. I think we're starting around 3:45, so 15 minutes before kickoff, covering all the games, which is just going to be absolute chaos. So come and join us on YouTube for that. It's going to be good. There's going to be goal popping up all over the place. We will not be able to keep up, but that's going to make it even better than the kind of last few we've done. So make sure you head over to YouTube if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'll say goodbye. Thanks for joining us. Hit that follow button, and we'll see you again on Twitch soon. Cheers all.